Well, this picture relates to when I was roughly, I'd say, 6 or 7, around the time of when you actually got confirmed. And it's basically the first time I experienced fear. It was a time when my dad was a lorry driver, and on a Friday night he'd always go for a pint before he come home. But unfortunately at that time, as we always seemed to run out of electricity, so we'd all sit around the fire waiting for me dad to come home and tell ghost stories. But anyway, this particular Friday, we've been telling ghost stories. The Lecky had obviously gone as usual, and we were just sitting around the fire telling the ghost stories, and then I was asked to go and find whether my dad was at the pub. So anyhow, at the end of the street was where my godfather, whom when I got confirmed, lived. So maybe he did, I don't really know because I obviously couldn't speak to him now, but maybe he did purposely know and knew that I was actually going to be going looking for me dad. So anyhow, I'd been sent out and I walked down. It was in the winter and it was pitch black, bearing in mind I was 6 or 7, just a child basically. And I was walking along the road and I come to the house next to me godfather's, and it was a derelict house. It was a 3-story with just no windows in. It was, just barely standing there like a skeleton. And suddenly I just heard like a woo, somebody making a noise, and I've actually looked up and just seen what I assumed was a ghost in real life. It turned out it was me stepfather, I should say godfather, actually standing there with a sheet on, with a ping pong balls painted black as eyes, with elastic band round. And I just looked up and seen him, and the fear that actually went through me was unbelievable. Anyhow, there was a main road, and I'd actually ran across the road and nearly got myself ran over. And I just didn't want to go back the street, and I sat outside outside the Chaucer pub and Bootle waiting for me dad to come out, and he brought me home. And that's basically my first experience as a child, is fear, because it seriously was fear.
Well, we going back a long time ago. This photo reminds me when I was grow up. I was grow up in Africa in the late 60s, start 70s. And my parents they had a house there because my father was working there. And on the spare times, I used to play football on the back of the house. And there was a lot of bushes in trees and all that. And we used to play football, me and my neighbors and all that. And that just brings my memories back all about the bushes, the football games we used to have, my friends in that time. So in certain way, it's just a part of my life that brings my memories back right now.
Okay.
Um, well, I was going back a good few years now. Living in Seaforth at the time. My dad was a docker. And my mum entered a competition in the Echo and won a house through the Echo, and the house that was won was up in Netherton Way. But it was built right next to farms and like forest, so we were out in the wilderness. And to me it was all brand new, it was nothing I'd seen before. And I was only a young kid at the time, 3 or 4. So it was like a new adventure for me. The tree thing was one of the very first things that I can really remember when I was a kid. Maybe because I hurt myself, fell on my head. All I can really remember about it is it being not far from where I lived, as in 50 yards from the front door, which I wasn't used to seeing when I was growing up in Seaforth by the docks and that. I suppose the tree itself just enticed me to climb it, you know. Not that I was a tree climber or nothing, but so when I climbed the thing anyway and got so far and realised that I couldn't climb down, you know. So I was sort of like stuck. And I got a bit of a fear factor then, you know, being stuck up a tree, only 4 years of age and that. A high tree as well. Yeah. And I think I tried to I tried to climb down myself, but failed. One of the branches went on me. I was wrapped around a thicker branch, but I couldn't hold myself. Just sort of twisted, landed on my head. It's a few branches on the way down. I can remember that clearly. That sticks in my head more than the fact of hitting the floor, you know, which you can't really remember much about. But look, the lucky thing about it, with being so close to where we just moved to, you know, the parents were pretty close at hand, you know. I think I have got a scar off it, I'm not sure, you know what I mean? It's like my man keeps telling me it's a birthmark. I think it was when I fell out of the tree. My life's gone backwards since then.
But you survived to tell the tale.
I'm still here to tell the tale.
Ah, thanks for that, mate. That's
No problem.
brilliant. Okay, Mark, what does this photograph mean to you?
Adrian, this photograph means to me, it takes me back to when I was a kid, type of thing, or just coming out of school. I came out of school like with a famous lot of qualifications called unclassifieds. So we had to go to further education, which meant me going to a place called Central College in Clarence Street. Being a bit of a numbskull, I met a few mates and stuff like this who were also classified as numbskulls, but we all got together, tried to learn as many big words as we could, and ended up sort of educating each other into the ways of life type of thing, which still stands there today. The place we spent a lot of time was facing Central College, which at the time was at I wouldn't say it was a cafe, it was actually a room which led into the back, which was a bar type of thing, which was a bar which had a car light as its light, and they used to serve a drink called Lion Lager type of thing, which, you know, we all had we were partial to a taste of type of thing. At that period we used to play five-a-side in the Institute, and we got educated into a lot of things through the teachers. A fella called Bob Waring, who I think is a Labour MP now type of thing, or he's just retiring. We met a lot of people, the teachers intermingled, and we had a football team, but we used to spend a lot of time in the Offenbrow house as well, which at that time was famous for ladies who sort of take the clothes off and what have you. And a famous one called Shandy, who were all petrified of, because she used to come over and maybe ask you to take a bra off, and we used to get the shakes and we couldn't get it off. But it was a time of joyousness. The lads used to play football, and even though we staggered most of the time, it was a great period of love and laughter, which still lasts to this day. Thanks very much.
Okay, Bernie, can you tell us what the significance of the lock of hair in the photograph is?
Well, at Herschel Street, the place where we were born and brought up, Mum had a shoebox with all little keepsakes, photographs, and we were all very intrigued by this little envelope. And wrapped in this envelope in tissue was a lock of lovely blonde hair. We since later found out it was the hair from the brother we never knew. He died 18 months, 8 years, aged 18 months, and we used to get this little lock of hair out every so often, look at it and feel the aura about it, and put it back secretly because we didn't want Mum to know that we'd looked at this lock of hair.
And this other picture, Bernie, can you tell us about that?
It's very real to me, although it's been photoshopped. It shows Dad walking from the pub, which is right at the rear of the house, coming home, and myself, brothers and sisters, standing on the step. Dad only had to walk along that street, swing on the lamppost, and he was home.
Right, of a Friday, Mum used to go to the bank and get her money out for the week. On the way back home, she'd stop at the cream cake shop to get a treat for Dad for after his tea. Every week, without fail, I'd kick up a fuss about wanting a cream cake. Every week she'd say, "You're not having a cream cake because you don't like them." It got to the point where the shop assistants used to hide if I came into the shop, because I'd kick and I'd scream and I'd shout, and every week Mum would say, "No, you don't like cream cakes." It got to one Friday when she'd obviously had enough, and we got to the cake shop and the assistants were hiding out back as usual, and I kicked up a fuss. "I want a cream cake, I want a cream cake." So Mum said, "Right, you can have a cream cake, but you'd better eat it." So we get the cream cake, goes on home, and Mum sits me in the high chair, gives me this cream cake I've screamed for years, and I turned round to her and said, "No, Mum, I don't like." So she said, "Right," and she picked up the cream cake and rubbed it in my face. The following Friday, we go to the bank to get her money out for the week, back to the cake shop. The assistants are hiding in the back. Mum takes me into the shop, and I didn't say boo to a goose. I was as quiet as anything, and the assistants looked at me and said, "What did you do to her?" And Mum said, "I told her if she didn't eat it, she'd wear it." And she did, and they were amazed at the difference in me.
All right, Chris, do you want to tell us about your picture?
Yeah, it was when I was coming out of it, when I used to work for community industry up by top of Henshaw Street. I used to work there for years. I was community industry, I was doing gardening there, and just finished there having a Friday night street the paper and all that. I enjoyed it though. It was about 21 years ago. 21 years ago I worked there, and it was good life. That's how I got to know about gardening. That it was like YTS. It was youth training scheme. So I enjoyed doing it.
So, Steve, a drain pipe and a football. What's that all about?
Well, a drain pipe and football. It's about my brother. I used to play football for Thames TV, and my brother played football for Thames TV, and through that there was a tour to go to Scotland to play all the regional teams like Granada and Scottish TV and all that. It was a weekend in Stirling. I thought it'd be great, all the gang of lads going out together, you know, having piss up and whatever. And my brother looking forward to it, but through work they wouldn't let him go, so he had to stay behind, and he was really pissed off about having to stay behind. So we went there and had a great time. People from Coronation Street playing football against them and all that, and it's just coming home on a coach, got back to Thames TV studio and coming into Teddington Lock where it was, and at the gates someone was waiting for me, called me off the coach and sat me in this little room and told me that my brother had died. He fell off. He used to work in a pub. He was a chef. He worked in a pub and he lived in the pub upstairs. And so that night, where he should have been with us, playing football and everything, he just went out and thought, I'm going out getting pissed up and whatever. He got back and he couldn't get into his flat, which was like on the top floor. So he climbed up onto the roof and tried to sort of angle himself round where there was a window, a part open, and he got himself round, but he grabbed onto a drain pipe. It was one of them old, the new plastic ones. So as he grabbed onto that, it broke, it snapped, and he fell backwards and smashed his head and died. So he loved his football. He loved like going out, enjoying himself, and he'd have loved to be there, you know. And because someone at work said, "No, you can't go," he was that pissed off. He just, went and got pissed and ended up, killing himself basically. So it's just the memory of that, really, the football and the drain pipe. That's it. And the thing afterwards is like going back to the pub, pick up his stuff, and it was like really airy. It was like a dark night, windy night, and the pub was empty, it was all dark, all the lights, most of the lights were out, and I had to go and pick his stuff up. And as I was walking to the pub doors sort of opened on their own for me. So I just thought it was weird. It was like a really airy night and windy and cold and dark and everything, and these doors just swung open for me. So I walked in. It's weird. Very weird.
What was it like as a 3-year-old growing up in this place, miles from anywhere, as it must have seemed, coming from Liverpool, to be suddenly finding yourself in this relatively small place up in the north of Scotland?
It felt different. It was like, because I was only 3, I didn't have like that much knowledge of what it would be like in Liverpool at that age either. So it was more like a sense. You always had a sense that you were different, a feeling that you didn't belong. When you were with like a group of people, there was always something that held you back from like, joining in things and totally being yourself, because you knew you were different, but at 3 you didn't know why you were different. Even like being a different colour, at 3 you didn't sense that there was anything wrong. You didn't know there was anything wrong with that, but the way people talked to you and looked at you and treated you, you were always questioning what's wrong, what is it that's different. So you kind of like grow up always questioning everything, and because people do treat you different, you're always expecting it then, so you can never kind of relax around things. You're always working out how to blend in with people and kind of waking them out all the time, so to kind of see how you can be. So it's like you're observing all the time. At first, it was like coming to Liverpool, you still had a sense of belonging at a younger age because you're coming and being with family. So you felt like you belonged, which made me long to always want to live in Liverpool when I was younger. I also had a little bit of Liverpool with me in Scotland because I had my family, and there was a few of us. So I had a sense of Liverpool even when I wasn't there, and when they were together, it was like being around people, being in Liverpool. But as you get older, and you because you're trying to adjust and your behaviours are changing to fit in, you're fitting in less in Liverpool, so you start getting that alien feeling when you come down there as well, and people can see your difference in you because you picked up all behaviour from where you live in, and so it felt less and less like it belonged. So I would see Liverpool from a different perspective then, because whereas before I felt like it was my home and where I belonged, it was just another place where I was having to try to fit in the end, so I would separate from being around the family and that sort of thing to finding new things about Liverpool, which was a good thing because I looked into sides of it where that people don't when they live there, and I was appreciating the city from a different perspective, the arts and the culture and the multicultural thing, because I had two families in Liverpool as well, so I had the side of my family where my dad was from Trinidad and there was culture and there was the food and the music and stuff, and then there was a side that was traditionally Liverpool. So I was getting to see everything from all different perspectives.
Okay, Steve, could you tell us about the memories behind these images?
Well, the idea for the images came from my father, or my memory of my father, who died about 6 years ago. I now live in New Brighton on the front, right over the River Mersey. My father had a great love for the River Mersey, but he never actually saw where I lived. And the idea came, he also left me, or the only thing I've got that was his possession, were a pair of binoculars, and I often use the binoculars to look out over the river, and obviously it reminds me of my father, and he never actually saw where I lived, and he would have loved it. So the idea was to create a landscape that included my father, so and also explore the idea of memory, because my memories of my father are obviously of the times I spent with him, but more recently it's about photographs and about objects, and we do have a tendency, I realise, to actually form our own memories, and then when we question them, whether they are actually true or not in the sort of a real sense, we tend to edit stuff and edit out the stuff that we don't want to remember, and I think to a certain degree we idealise. So that was the idea of this concept of placing a picture of my father, and I've got a picture of him on a beach, and then placing items around there that have memories for me of my dad, and then placing them on the landscape of the beach at New Brighton, which incidentally is actually not a true picture because it's a composite of a lot of shots. So, and I quite like the idea that this place doesn't really exist, because to a certain extent our memories are something we've made up ourselves.